Welcome back all the participants. Now we will start this session 1. Dr. T. Srinivas is going to talk about quantum information technology using photonics. So before that, I would like to introduce once again Dr. T. Srinivas. Dr. Srinivas Talabattulu is professor in ECE department, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He obtained BSc in physics from New Science College, Hyderabad, and ME and PhD from ISC. He was a postdoctoral research fellow at Toyohashi University of Technology, Japan during 1992 to 96. His area of research interest is optical communications, in particular photonic integrated circuits. He published about 150 papers and guided 28 PhD students. He is a member of the National Board of Accreditation (NBA). He was the chairman GATE ISC zone during 2010 to 2013. He is an active volunteer of IEEE Bangalore section and was the chair of IEEE Photonics Society and IEEE Communication Society Bangalore chapter, Bangalore section. He has supported several IEEE Society chapters and many IEEE student branches in Bangalore section. Welcome back, sir, Dr. T. Srinivas. It's over to you, sir. Please take over the session, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Sir, please, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Yeah. Just a few more minutes, please. So I'm trying to use a different machine for the video and for the audio. There may be one of the problems. Few more minutes, please.
Sir, you can start. Sir, you can start, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Let us. No. You can share from there only. It is difficult from here. There is some difficulty. Video and audio both. Only I will switch off my video. and only the slides. I'll switch on the mic and then speak. Okay, another few minutes. Yeah, yeah, share. You can please share to everyone. Anyway, I'm seeing the slides. They are coming. Yes.
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir. Srinivas, sir. Sir, we can't hear your voice, sir. Sir, sir, we can't hear your voice, sir.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Sir, now we can hear, sir.
No.
Please start, sir.
Oh, it's not moving. It's lying. Yeah. So good morning to you all. I may speak only for a few minutes. I'm very happy to be a part of your inaugural program. I hope I'll be able to speak on some technical topic in future in some of your programs. So I would like to now highlight one important topic that is relevant to this workshop. That is called the quantum information technology. In this world now, there's a lot of interest and a lot of hype about using quantum computers and quantum communications and so on for the emerging technologies. So many people, many organizations, many institutes, governments, they are jumping into this bandwagon. Of course, this is spurred by recent developments by Chinese, Europeans, and other groups. Of course, India is not far behind. It is also into the race, but still we are somewhat behind. So this technology provides a very extraordinary security capabilities, very superlative computing possibilities, and so on and so forth. If someone Googles, you will find what all it can do. But an important point that we should note is we don't have a quantum computer in hand. Since even though people have been talking about some 20, 30 years about quantum information, we don't have. So I would say that technology is necessary to realize that. So optical engineering or photonics technology is a technology which will provide insights into how quantum computers can be realized. So I would like to once again, one more point, I would like to emphasize, it's not a very, because I did not talk much technical, I would say that quantum is a very interesting subject and very esoteric subject. It's not common sense. It doesn't appear to be common sense, but all the phenomena that we see around are quantum. So I hope someone will highlight in this FDP about quantum information technology, quantum security, quantum computing, and also, if necessary, role of photonics technology, etc. So maybe in the future, some FDP or sometime, I will be happy to participate in terms of either quantum or in terms of photonics or something. Thank you very much for calling me to your program, and wish you all the best. Actually, I wanted to put slides, but I thought I will disturb the your schedule. I'll need a lot more time if I use these slides. Thank you very much. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir,
Dr.
please.
Triveni, am I?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir. Please continue, sir.
Yeah, I think let us start because we have lost some time. See, still there is some echo-like thing. I don't know. Maybe network problem or something.
So network issue is there, sir. You can continue, sir. You can just talk. Sir. I'll just change the slides.
Yeah, there is something that some ringing sort of sound. Maybe some from somewhere it's coming. You may have to mute.
Speaker problem, sir.
I don't know whether everyone is hearing or only. Hello. Now video has also come. So am I only hearing or everyone is hearing this sound?
Sir, we are also hearing, sir.
Oh. Okay, in any case, I don't mind. We'll get started.
Yes, sir,
So
please.
let us. So first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to this workshop, and also wish you all the best for your workshop. With that, I will start. So my topic is quantum, broadly. I mean, I'm not very deeply. Broadly, quantum information. This is a brief agenda of my presentation. It starts with a brief introduction, little bit of history, then we'll see what is qubits, and then we'll see a few quantum operations like quantum gates. Then we'll see a broad picture of how a computer would look like. Then quantum communication, what are the features of quantum communication, and then how it goes to the future, and the role of photonics.
Sir, little bit disturbance is there, sir. Sir.
Yeah, I know. From my side or?
I think from your side only, sir.
Hello?
So now it is okay, sir. You can please continue, sir.
So we'll talk about the future of quantum information technology, then a few slides on how photonics will play its role, and a little bit of work that we are doing in our lab. That is the agenda. I think, of course, I don't have mathematics this time. I hope we'll have a good and rigorous tutorial sometime. I think someone may speak also, I think. Let us go to the next slide, please. So the crux of this FDP is the quantum. Even though photonics is there as a keyword, we'll see how photonics will play an important role. So the two important components or two aspects that people realize when we talk about quantum information technology are the quantum computing and quantum communications. So the keyword is the quantum. As was mentioned already by Dr. Srikanth and others in the beginning, the quantum is represented by the quantum states of an object. We should distinguish between the classical and quantum. That's what he said. So the classical means the everyday, commonly observable phenomena. Like many of you are familiar with mechanics, the movement of objects and thermal phenomena and so on. And when we say quantum, many of you come across this in the college when you talk about atomic systems, where you have some strange properties which are not common sense, doesn't appear to be common sense. For example, absorption of light by a material. So now, about more than a century ago now, we know that the materials will absorb light only of certain frequencies, not all frequencies. Okay, and also at a higher level, we know that objects are represented by probabilities. We cannot say deterministically, we cannot say perfectly that this is the property of the object. For example, if an object is moving, we cannot tell anything about the velocity. So that is the quantum. I think when we go further ahead, we will have more slides, but just we can say a quantum computer is a device which will use the quantum phenomena for its operation, not classical phenomena. In fact, we know that classical phenomena is a subset or a particular case of quantum. Okay, so the best way to visualize, or as I said in the beginning, in the introduction, is that all the phenomena are actually quantum. Classical is only an approximation. So the same definition, we can say that a quantum communication link uses quantum properties of the objects. As we later on, I will elaborate more, both quantum properties of the source, quantum detection, quantum communication, quantum channel, and all those things. So quantum computer uses quantum phenomena. Quantum communication also uses quantum phenomena to transmit information from one point to the other. So let us go to the next slide. The central point next after quantum is the qubit. Let us understand what is meant by the qubit. Let us go to the next slide, please. So before going further, a little bit about the history. Most of the time people quote Richard Feynman, a pioneering scientist who not only did a lot of scientific discoveries, he was also involved in popularization and also predicting the future of the technology. One of his predictions is that we can use quantum phenomena will play an important role in the future of computing. Let us look at, we can go further, please. Let us look at the timeline. So we can say this is a very brief timeline, starting with the Feynman's idea of quantum computer. Then one of the first protocols called BB84 protocol in 1984. Then different models were there. One of the earliest models of quantum computing in 85. Then you have lot of protocols have come, and one of the important ideas is to use the entanglement. entanglement of objects is necessary for many, many things, including quantum communications. That is what is proposed protocol using quantum entanglement. Then during the 90s, as you know, a lot of computer science has developed and networking. So one of the important points that we can note at that time is the factorization algorithms. Shor's algorithm will factorize very large numbers, and he demonstrated that you can do large computations which are not possible with classical techniques. So then, of course, one more algorithm called the search algorithm, Grover search algorithm. Then you had the idea of a linear system. See, we are all familiar with the linear time invariant systems. People have come up with linear optical quantum systems for computing in about the turn of the century. Then jumping to the more recent times, the most of the hype has been generated, or the most of the interest, let me say, has been generated by the involvement of chains in the quantum engineering. Of course, we can say that they have been preparing, they were not idle. Of course, Indians have been playing an important role, either directly or within India. A lot of work is being done in India in the area of quantum, and India also has come up with our own program of quantum information technology. Then, of course, to note a few more important developments, there was a 2,000 kilometer intercontinental link by Chinese. Then also immediately after that, all these big companies like Google, IBM, etc., have jumped into this quantum bandwagon. Now, a lot of interesting and we can say more realistic information is pouring out of all these big companies also. And a lot of freeware is available, a lot of educational programs have come, a lot of lectures you can see everywhere. So there is a very big buzz about quantum information technology now. In the news, if you look at it, the scientific news, if you count, it is a very big count. I think every 1/4 of the news item is coming out in terms of the quantum nowadays. Okay, let us get going. Next one, please. Yeah, now I come to what is this qubit. Is the central point in this quantum information technology. So we have to compare the qubit with a bit. Most of us are familiar with the bits. So if you have a classical information, we represent it by using some classical objects like currents or voltages. So the bulky properties like the current, voltage, or movement, or a cricket ball, or whatever, it's a classical object. So we represent, say in electronics, we represent using voltages and currents, the bits. So a bit is it is a fundamental unit that carries information. In contrast to that, we call it qubit. The unit, basic unit of quantum information is called the qubit. What does it mean is a very important and interesting and tricky issue. It is not directly apparent, the idea of qubit. And in fact, we cannot compare with a bit also. That's an important problem. That's the important problem. We cannot say a bit is equal to so many qubits. We cannot say, or a qubit is equal to 1 bit, or is qubit equal to 10 bits. It cannot be said. There is no correspondence. But let us understand what is this qubit. As we said, the objects have got quantum states. If you want to have an image, you can think of either an electron or a photon. Because we are talking about photonics, let us think of a photon. Photon is one of the fundamental particles in the universe and the fundamental particle of light. It has got different properties than electron. In particular, we will be interested in its polarization. Light, you know, has got polarization. Similarly, you can talk about the polarization of a photon. Because it is an electromagnetic wave, it has got all the components Ex, Ey, Ez, Hx, Hy, Hz, which will define the polarization of the photon. So the polarization of, maybe if you are confused, if you are thinking in terms of the classical light, you can say horizontal polarization or vertical polarization. So the photon has got states. All the quantum quantum objects have got states. So how are these states described? They are described by the principles of quantum mechanics. One of the principles is the Schrodinger's theory, where you have the Schrodinger's equation. The solution to that will give you the wave function. The square of that will represent the PDF, probability distribution function. Most of you who are in the communications and electronics field will know what is this PDF. So the PDF is the mathematical function which will describe the probability of the property at a particular point. For example, if I say the polarization of the photon is given by this PDF, we can say it is horizontal or vertical only with some probability. Okay, and it changes. You can think of a rotating vector. So the state of a photon or the polarization of the photon is described by the probability distribution function. That is the Schrodinger's theory. Similarly, you have density matrix formulation, operator formulation, and more higher order like Hilbert space representation. So many ways are there to understand what is this qubit. For the time being, you just take the parallel from classical light waves, horizontal polarization or vertical polarization, but it has got only PDF. You cannot say exactly whether it is horizontal or vertical. Then, what do you observe is an important question. If you try to observe a photon, what do you observe? Its state, whether it's horizontal or vertical. As I said, it is only probability. So you can talk about an average or a moment. The first moment is the average, which is represented by that notation which you see there. So we can say that the average of the object is what you can expect when you observe the photon. So in quantum physics, observables are all represented by the averages like this. Bracket notation, this is called a ket. Bracket notation is used for all probability distribution functions. Of course, higher order moments also are useful, but we will not worry about now. Average is sufficient to understand. So average of the state can be 0 or 1, or horizontal polarization or vertical polarization. And we say that the actual state is a linear combination of horizontal and vertical state. So alpha into 0 ket plus beta into 1 ket will give us the average of the actual state, not actual state, average only. Okay, and you have these two variables, alpha and beta. As you know, the solution of the Schrodinger equation can have a complex function. The wave itself is a complex. So alpha and beta are complex variables, and the interpretation is the square of these will give you the 0 ket and 1 ket. Average probability of getting 0 is alpha square, probability of getting 1 is beta square. It depends on many factors, maybe half also sometimes if it is symmetric. So mathematically, you can also represent this in polar coordinates and say that angle, suppose if you say the polarization angle is theta, then you can have a probability of theta being at 0 degrees is so much, theta is being 1 degree is so much, can be given by the ket of psi. So this is represented using the Bloch sphere. What is called the Bloch sphere. It is only representation by taking that expression psi ket is alpha 0 ket plus beta 1 ket. So you have all the points on this sphere representing the states of psi. And in the geometrical representation, you can interpret the 0 ket and 1 ket as the basis vectors. They can be up and down, or the horizontal polarization and vertical polarization. So there are infinite number of points. There are infinite number of points representing the state of the photon. Average state of photon. So that is a very strange thing. Whereas in classical, we have only 0 volts or 1 volt. For representing horizontal vertical polarization, there are only 2 points. Whereas we have infinite number of points for a qubit. That is an important thing that we should realize. I will not describe too much on this now. We'll go slightly quickly and get important things. I hope by the end of this workshop, you'll get a lot more information and you will learn a lot more. Let us go to the next slide, please. I hope that much about the qubit is sufficient. Let's. Next one, please. Next important, extension that we can do is, we cannot do much with one qubit. You see that I have already mentioned in the beginning, how much information is stored in the qubit cannot be answered. We cannot equate with so many classical bits. Okay, but if you say certain amount, see, there is no exact equivalence between qubit and bit. But if you use more than one system, if you use more than one system, so let me say 2 photons, then these are all the possibilities. Photon can be 0 state or 1 state, and correspondingly have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. 4 combinations. In terms of, let's say alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 4, after positions, and we can multiply alpha 1, 0, 0, alpha 1, ket 0, alpha 3, ket 1, 0, and alpha 4, ket 1, 1. We represent the 2 state, to take the 2 photons as a single unit of 4 possible basis states. So each of these basis states is a 4-dimensional space. That's what is given in this equation below. So size is in a 4-dimensional space, not 2-dimensional space. Mathematically, you can imagine nowadays everyone is lot of comfortable or familiar with vector spaces. We study a lot of linear algebra, so you can easily imagine vectors in n-dimensional space. Earlier, physical people had difficulty imagining more than 4 dimensions, x, y, z, and t. But now we are able to imagine or work with, actually it is not imaginary, it's a real thing. N-dimensional vector space is a real mathematical object. So we can represent the psi with n-dimensional vector space. So alpha 0, alpha 0, 1, alpha 1, 0, alpha 1, 1 are observables of these states, and squares of them will give the probabilities of that 2-qubit system in that particular state. So you can enhance, you can increase, or you can imagine multiple qubits like this, 3-qubit state, 4-qubit states, and so on and so forth, and so many dimensions are extended. So how much information? Maybe one comment I'll make. And of course, we know that we cannot represent 4-dimensional space in a 2-dimensional on a paper or in a 3-dimensional space. Okay. See, if you want to represent it on a 2-dimensional space, you have only 2 basis states. 2 basis states also not sufficient. One x-axis, one y-axis. If you have x-axis, you can put the ket, and x-axis you can y-axis you can put ket, and x-axis you can put one of the variables. That's all. If you have a 3D space like block sphere, we can 2D 1 qubit we can represent. More than one is we can only imagine or represent mathematically. Okay, so you can imagine n qubit system, and you can easily observe the basis states are 2 power n. So if you want to make an equivalence, you can say that almost, I mean, it is not a very rigorous theory, you can say exponential order, because you can easily observe 2 power n is the growth. When you have n qubits, you have 2 power n states. So it is a 2 power n dimensional vector space. So you can say the qubit information is growing exponentially. If you want to equate 1 qubit with 1 bit, then there is exponential order of information in n qubit system. Exponential order of classical information in n qubit system. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
I hope you have thought of that. Let us get going. One more, please.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, can we not use Q-sphere to represent multipartite state?
No, because this is 4-dimensional space.
Still, sir, in IBM, they're using Q-sphere to represent multipartite state. Can we not use that, sir?
No, you see, it is like a transistor characteristics. Suppose you have voltage versus ID characteristics. Suppose if a function f of x comma y comma z. Suppose you have a function of x comma y comma z. How do we plot that? We are only in 3-dimensional space. Is it not? If you want to build a model, build something. So mathematically we can imagine. See, if you want to write on a paper, you can only do y equal to f of x. Is it not? We can plot only y equal to f of x. If there is a parameter alpha, you must make multiple. In the same graph, you should plot many curves like transistor characteristics. If you do three-dimensional, see, of course, 3 dimensions mapping onto 2 dimensions is not correct. Is it not? See, you have perspective views and all. In the engineering drawing, you do all these things. But if you want to really build in 3D space, in a physical space, we can set up and erect, and we can say f of x comma y. Z equal to f of x comma y, we can represent in a 3D space. That's all. Here we have 4 variables. See, the block sphere, what you saw, is in 3D space. For this one, we need 5D space for x, y, x1, x2, x3, x4, depending on, I mean, y depending on x1, x2, x3, x4. How do we represent? Is it not?
Yes, sir. With yeah, we cannot represent it with 90-degree shifting. But
No.
can we not express it in terms of ket 00, ket 01, ket 10, ket 11 in a different position over?
You see, that's how we are representing this equation that we put. Says everything. It is real. But in a paper, in a 3D space, we cannot put.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
See, it is like suppose you have a building in the real world, your college building.
Yes, sir.
So, if you take a photograph, it is only 2D. Even if you take a perspective view, maybe if you take a hologram or 3D, what is that called? Something was there, which you visually you have 3D perception. Is it not? It's not really 3D also.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
human
We
beings
cannot take the picture of that. I mean, whenever I want to draw it on the paper, it will be 2D only, but
yes.
cannot represent it in 3D by using some softwares and all.
No, it is only cross sections and sections that we are seeing in 3D. Different cross sections you can put projections. They are projections onto 2D space. See, our
Yes.
learning methodology that we are learning from the books or pictures, artwork, etc., is all 2D, not even 3D. But 3D also we can imagine, there is a real 3D, is it not? If you see some person or an object, we are seeing in 3D, our eye is able to reconstruct. Is it not?
Sir, thank you, sir.
It's a
Thank
very
you.
interesting thing because you are talking about photonics. It's a very interesting thing to imagine what we are imagining. See, what we are seeing you as it is not only human. See, human beings, we have 2 eyes, and the object, the light from the object is coming and falling on our ears, on our eyes. The eye itself, the retina itself, is a 2D object. It's not 3D. So with the 2 eyes, we are reconstructing. Okay. Suppose you have 3 eyes. Just very wildly imagine. Let us imagine. I'm not wasting the time. I suppose. Suppose you have 3 eyes. Suppose you have 3 eyes like Shiva. What would you see? It's an interesting question. So it's a good mathematical problem to imagine higher and higher order vector spaces. So it's a very interesting thing. In fact, we can imagine, we cannot see. Okay, let us, towards the end, if there is time, we'll discuss more about that, or maybe privately we can debate.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Let us get going to the next slides. Yeah, one more point if you want, you can ask me. It's interesting, but we'll be spending time. Very nice. There are a lot of interesting things. I thought about all this during the last few years when this quantum has become popular. I was thinking, what is this? I am not at all convinced about many things in quantum, even though, see, from mathematically we can accept, but physically they are very, very strange and beyond our. In fact, I think we can say they are beyond our imagination also, some of the concepts in the real world. Okay. Yeah, we'll have more opportunity to talk about such a things later. Let us get going to some practical problems. Next slide, please. Hello, Dr. Triveni or someone who is, yeah. Now, see, there are a lot of strange issues that we actually, I think I know some of them are there in that Srikanth slides also earlier I have listened, but I would like to bring in, even though we cannot say qubits exactly, we can do some operations on the qubits. Suppose, you see, the argument comes from the other side. See, we already know that we operate with all these objects, like light, for example. We transmit light from one point to the other point. And we know that light is quantum in nature. So what is happening when you transmit from one point to the other point? Is there any change happening in the photon states? Is there any deterioration? These are all things that come up to our mind. One of the important things is the transformations. So once again, we want to compare, even though we may not compare fully, you can compare with classical things, what is happening. If you have a linear time invariant system, and if you launch a vector into that, you get some other vector outside Y. So this system is acting as a transformation. So you can represent in terms of, it is very interesting and useful to represent in the form of matrices. If you have a vector x1, x2, xn is the input and y1, y2 at the output, you can say y equal to ax is the transformation. So similarly, we can apply the same logic to quantum systems and say what is happening. An interesting thing that we have just now seen is that you have the coefficients are complex numbers, alpha, beta, etc. are complex numbers. So you can expect that x1, x2, etc. can be complex, and y1, y2 also can be complex, and the matrix also can be complex. And so there are many transformations which are not possible with real objects. So as a few of them are illustrated here. One of them is the polygates represented by the matrices. There's identity matrices you have seen with the matrix with I minus I and I in that, and 1 minus 1. You can easily imagine what they represent. Similarly, another important gate that is not familiar in classical is the Hadamard gate, which gives the superposition states of the object. 0 ket plus 1 ket is one output, and 0 ket minus 1 ket is the other output. So, and the matrix representation is also shown there. So, in fact, I would say that many people, or even we can, everyone, it is possible to escape from real understanding using mathematics. Even if you don't understand fully, the mathematical principles are established. If you go deeper, you will be able to understand. But what we represent is correct. So we can say that we have understood at least to partially by using the mathematical notation. So that is the importance of mathematics in this, particularly in this quantum information technology. So you have understood better if you use the this notation properly. Okay, let us get going. Next slide, please. So we are talking about the quantum gates. So you can make transformations. So you can think of 2 input gates, 1 input gate, 3 input gates. Many outputs are possible. You can think of them as a system, m by n system, represented by the matrices. Next slide, please. Yes, please. I will use the word next slide, please. Then you can slide always. Okay. Yeah, a few specific gates that you come across are the C0 gate. There's one input and one control input. C is the control input, and this is what you get out. The matrix is a good way to understand what it is. Similarly, you can have more than one control gates, control ports. C1, C2 are the two control ports, and T is the input, and you can have a various combinations which can be represented by this. This is specific gate, CC0 gate, it is called. Next slide, please. I think we should go fast. I don't know. I may have time up to 11, I suppose. A lot of slides are there. We should go fast. Okay. So these are all the comparisons between the classical gates and quantum gates, and how, see, there sometimes many times we use only block diagram to represent, but the mathematical representation is correct. So you can talk about the fan out, that means you want to see there's one important problem which is not mentioned by me now. You cannot divide a photon. You cannot divide a quantum object. So the famous double slit experiment is there in physics. So if you pass light through this double slit experiment, you are supposed to get the interference pattern at the output, that sin x by x curve. Whereas if you do the experiment with single photons, so you only have to think in terms of PDFs. So you can say that sin x by x pattern is nothing but the PDF only, not the actual physical pattern. Okay, so you can think of that, and so you cannot divide the photon. You cannot replicate the photon also, because we don't know its state. We cannot say the second photon will have exactly the same as the first state. This is a very interesting thing I thought about once. See, we say that you cannot replicate a photon. A very good analogy of that is the twins. In the real world, you know that we have some twins. Twins have almost close to similar, they are almost similar. Okay, but they are not identical. Even if you say identical twins, there is some fundamental difference. Similarly, no two objects, no two photons have identical properties. So this goes to, there is one more idea in quantum information, that of entanglement. Right now I will orally describe. Entanglement implies there's a close correlation with some property, like polarization. It can have many other properties different. This is almost very good analogy with twins. Twins are almost close in appearance, but there can be many other features which are not same. Similarly, two entangled photons will have correlated properties, but not exactly same. So this correlation property can be used in many ways. We will not discuss too much with that now. Let us get going, please. Next slide, please. So certain criteria have been set up to understand the quantum information systems. What are the requirements? We need a scalable physical system with well-defined, well-characterized qubits. Qubits have to be prepared to say that this is likely to be in this state, etc. Mechanism to initialize. Yeah, please, one more, just a few more minutes, please, for the previous slide. So there is what is called this decoherence. The objects will not remain in the state for as long as you want. So there is a finite time after which the property decays or deteriorates. This is called the decoherence. So it should have good amount of decoherence so that you can, I mean, long in the sense, not very long. See, we are talking about photonic. If we are talking about photonic systems, we can talk about femtoseconds of pulses. Okay, so quantum mechanically, you can say that long in the sense quite, I mean, from the physical point of view, it's quite short. So, of course, if you want to build a universal general purpose quantum computer, you need, like NAND gates in classical, we need to have some universal set of quantum gates. Then we should have some mechanism to interpret or measurement, what's called the measurement capability. Of course, I will not emphasize once again, but we cannot measure exactly. So of course, we have already seen that we can convert from one state to the other state by using these gates. So we should also need the ability to transmit from one point to the other. So that's a very tricky issue. Even classically, when you pass light, when you transmit using a fiber optic cable, you know that a lot of impairments are there, like loss, dispersion, non-linearities, and so on. So these are all the features that are demanded. More perfect systems are needed for quantum information systems, we can say. Okay, next slide, please. So this is how a quantum computer looks like. It is called a layered approach. We know in networks, you talk about 7-layer OSI model. So divide the operations into different layers, like control plane, data plane, etc. Similarly, that is the quantum computer can be understood in terms of many levels. So you can say that you have the mathematical model using all the fundamental physical, mathematical or physical. Then you should have what is called this computational model. What can be computed with these qubits using those gates is what can be called as a computational model. Like gates and so on and so forth, or even adders. See, we talk about in the classical, we know about adders and all those things. Okay, a few more minutes we can retain the previous one, then we'll come back to this. Previous one will show you the architecture aspect of that. This slide will show you the design of that. If you want to design a quantum information system, then you should start with a program, a quantum sort of program. You can call it quantum program to distinguish. Then you have a front end passed on to technology dependent. See, people talk about nowadays device independent operations. That's what will be there in the front end. So there's technology dependent optimization. So several layers of that. And at each layer you have the abstraction. So like a quantum algorithm can be abstracted mathematically, quantum circuit, and resulting in several machines. But that's how you will think of designing a quantum computer. Next slide, please. So now let's come to the quantum communication system. The most important, earlier we have talked about qubits and all that. The next important requirement in the quantum communication is the channel. So we have, classically, we have free space, we have a fiber optic cable, and so on and so forth. Okay. So I said just now that's a classical. And I also mentioned in the beginning that all these have quantum properties. So we should make use of the quantum properties of the channel. So quantum properties means if the object, see, let us look at an object interacting with the medium, the channel. So the channel can be classical in the sense how it operates on bits. So the channel can have quantum properties represented by that matrix. So it can modify the quantum state. That's what we can say by a quantum channel. Okay, so a lot of quantum channels are there, and also you know that we are talking about the light waves. You can use many other types of phenomena. People have used atomic phenomena, nuclear phenomena, and even gravitational waves. People have proposed that gravitational waves can also carry qubit information. In fact, I think in the real world, a lot of communication is happening on the gravitational waves because they are pervading the whole universe. Electromagnetic waves are somewhat short distance, you can say, relatively. Of course, electromagnetic waves are propagating, light waves are propagating from one end of the universe to other end. But gravitational waves are already there. That is what they, in the beginning of the universe, at the Big Bang, a lot of things have been set. And gravitational waves are the ones which are communicating between all these extraterrestrial objects. We don't know very still clearly about some properties of gravitational waves. So quantum gravity is an important idea that many people are talking about. In fact, of course, I know that a lot of theory papers are there in many good journals. Okay, that is very, very interesting. But of course, in the real world, I would say that photonics will be an important technology to realize the quantum communications. Okay, let's go. Next slide, please. So many times you compare the quantum information with the coin tossing. They are all very interesting parallels. One of the things that I have to is entanglement. If you have two entangled objects, what happens is an important question. So if these coins which he is tossing are entangled, there is a correlation between the properties. If the first coin has got some property, second, say for example, it is head, this can also be head. Similarly, you can think of many ways of entanglement and the use of that. So, if you by interpreting the properties of one coin, you can imagine or you can deduce the properties of the other coin. That's what is the importance of entanglement. For example, if you send the two entangled photons through an interferometer, one from one arm and another from one arm, probabilistically, of course. Then, by manipulating the arm of interferometer, you can assess or guess the properties of the other entangled photon. Okay, let's go. And on the right hand side, what you see, certain deductions. Only a few states are possible when they are entangled. Not completely. You see, earlier what we said, if there are two objects, two photons, then you have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, all the four bases, is it not? When they are entangled, all the four are not possible. The first is in 0 bit, second also is in 0 bit. So you have 0, 0, 1, 1, etc. 0, 1 and 1, 0. Anti-entanglement is also possible. If one is in the head, other can be tail. That also is like entanglement only. So you can make only certain combinations. Okay. I mean, dimensions also reduced, you can say, but we cannot say exactly. Let us go to next slide, please. So the most talked about thing is called the cryptography. You can encode classical information in qubits, and you have a lot of protocols now. So many times, a lot of protocols are there where you can use the quantum channel for cryptography. And but of course, as you know, we cannot have very high qubit systems. Only a few qubit systems have in practice. So we have to use the quantum information more prudently. So for actual information, we'll use a classical channel, and for header and such secure information, you can say that in this example at least, we are using the quantum channel. Okay, there are several protocols that have come into practice, and I'll show you one of them. Let's go to next slide. And of course, as you know, in the quantum world, these are the terminologies that are used. Alice, transmitter is called Alice, receiver is called the Bob, and Eve is trying to interpret the information. So it will try to steal. So we have to protect the system from Eve. So these are all the terminologies and features. Let us go to next slide, please. So this is a brief description of how you can use light waves in these one of the protocols. So here what is shown, very briefly I'll describe, and also there's a table there. So you have a source of quantum information that always is presenting source of quantum information. That means it will emit photons, single photons with some time delay, let me say. And then they can pass through these beam splitters, or what is that called, the polarizers. So you see that four boxes are there. First, the top two boxes, horizontal and vertical polarization, and bottom two boxes are left and right polarized polarization boxes. So if light passes through the first one, you can expect only the horizontal. See that alpha get is 0 and beta get 1. Only one of them. The probability is alpha. Is coming through the horizontal. If it is coming out of the vertical, it is beta. Similarly, you can use you can represent the same state of the photon by using a different basis, like left and right circularly polarized. So in this protocol, the transmitter Alice will use these machines randomly. That is the crux of the protocol. So that the choice of which basis is random. That is an important point in this protocol. Then similarly, at the other end, in the receiver end also, the Bob can receive in the first basis or second basis. So both are random. Alice can do randomly, Bob can do randomly, and the state of the photon can be one of these two randomly again. And so you can work out what are the various possibilities. So in the table you see below, if 1, 1, 0, 0, etc. is what is given classical bit sequence, not quantum bit sequence. And the next line is the choice of the basis by the transmitter. And below the line plus minus is the choice of the receiver. Then the final last state, he will show you the last but one, he will show you the possibility. So you can see that many bits are not correct. So what is the algorithm? You make a table of quantum this protocol and discard the information bits, the information qubits which are crossed out. Then you have the correct information. So if a lot of qubit information is transmitted by Alice and is received by Bob in random fashion like this, then you should take all the information which has got only matching keys. So that's how the QKD operates. A lot of it, and you can easily see that about 50% of the time you have the correct detection and 50% wrong detection. So if there is some problem, if Eve is there in between, then the probability is disturbed. So you can say that the information is compromised, and so this is called very highly secure key distribution mechanism. Okay, let us get going. So these are some pictures I have about recent developments. This is Mesius 1 satellite. Then there are a lot more have come now. Europeans also have got their own satellite systems and quantum experiments. It's one more slide, please. Next slide. Let's go to one more slide. So now, until now, we have talked about point-to-point communication. So what happens if you want to transmit with 3 people or 4 people or many people? So that's what is your internet, is it not? Internet, you have a big graph. And yet each person, there is a lot of information is there, a lot of equipment is there to detect and all that. You can imagine what all we have talked about earlier about the physical aspects. But the most important aspect now we have to consider in quantum internet is distribution of quantum information. Suppose I have a qubit and I want to distribute across 2 people, we cannot do it because you cannot divide or you cannot copy. So what happens? You have to give only a probability estimate for the first fellow, probability estimate for the second fellow. The superposition of the first and second node is the actual state of the quantum information. Because now we are talking about photonics, you think of a Y branch or a beam splitter. If a single photon is input at the Y branch and you are observing at the 2 outputs, you don't get the photon at the first or second exactly. You can get it only with some probability. But the superposition of the first port state and the probability of superposition at the second port state is the actual state of the Y branch. Okay, so we have to extend this idea to multiple ports. So if you have 100 ports, the quantum information is going to only one port is getting active, but with some probability. So you can say that the probabilities are getting divided. If there are 100 ports, 1 by 100 is the probability at each of these ports, very crudely speaking. Okay, so the total quantum state is still, of course, it is not exactly same because it is transmitted, is it not? And then, of course, you can think of all the impairments that we come across, like losses and all the things. Okay, let us go to another slide. So, little bit about some photonics, because this, in the beginning I said that photonics is a very good way to represent these qubits and so on. Until now, you know that atomic systems, because these are atomic in nature, a lot of electronics has developed. Atomic systems have been used by many people to implement this quantum information. So I can say that photonics is important. In fact, see, while implementing, people have done electronic and nuclear methods, but when you are trying to understand, photonics has been very good. Okay, so why not we use photonics for actual application and implementation also, and solve all these problems that we encounter in practice. So we need not discuss too much about the photonics because most of you will be knowing about photonics. So photonics is very, very necessary to implement quantum information. That's what I can say. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of platforms you have. and requirements are there. See, in each of the slides, I have put one reference. So people say that we need to do integrated photonics, not simply light. We cannot, of course, people have been doing setting up of a lab where you have all these stands, beams, splitters, prisms, and so on, and you can interconnect them to make a quantum system. But I would say that we need to have on-the-chip solutions. So you can have integrated photonics circuits for quantum information technology. And as you know, silicon is not sufficient. See, a lot of electronics is there on silicon, but that is not sufficient for photonics. For example, we cannot make a laser. So how can you think about qubits, etc. in silicon? So we have to go for next elements. But of course, some passive devices we can make in silicon and other related materials like nitrides, carbides, and so on. So most suitable ones are 3-5 materials where you can make lasers also on the same system. You can have electron-photon interactions, and a lot of quantum phenomena are there in that. We can make use of all those. Then, of course, an intermediate, because we are not fully ready with indium phosphide or gallium arsenide systems. In optics, as you know, you have crystals which are useful. You can control their properties, like lithium niobate is a crystal which has got electro-optic properties. We can use lithium niobate to make some non-linear properties, and then you can use them for quantum applications. That is an intermediate solution, you can say. So passive ones, of course, you can do with the glass or glass also, I mean. So let us go to the next slide, please. A little bit of discussion about integrated devices for quantum communication. We can skip and go to next one. Next one, please. So this is a mechanism to generate and manipulate quantum information. I would suggest you to just get an understanding of what are the devices involved. You can see the ring resonator there. You can see a grating or an FBG. FBG is a very common device. And then there's also a coupling between two rings. All these can be interesting quantum devices on the chip. Gratings are definitely important. Of course, this is over and above the classical requirements. See, you need input-output coupling. You need some modulation and all that. We should have a relook at them from a quantum point of view. That's what I mean by saying that we need integrated quantum photonics. Let's go to another slide, please. So similarly, there are a lot of things like source and detectors, then manipulation of the photons. All these things are described in the next fluid slides. I think I'll go to our work. So all these you can see from the Google or let's go to one more slide. So this is generation manipulation of photons. If you have a 3-5 material, you can directly manipulate. You can modulate, for example, the qubits. That's what is very short, I can say. Let us go to the next one, please. Yeah, next slide, please. I want to show our work. Otherwise, we'll run out of time. So detectors is another important problem. QKD we talked about. People have developed a short QKD system on the chip. They have proposed, and I think there's also a real device now. Let's go one more. QKD also people have proposed. We can do entire QKD on the chip. Let's go further. One more, please. Yeah, we'll skip to our work. Very briefly, I will tell about our work. So a lot of integration is needed. That is an important thing. There is a standard paper. You can look at that Simpson's paper on integrated quantum photonics. One more, please. You can skip to our, see all the classical devices, you can easily familiar branches and so on. A little bit about our lab. We have been working on QKD for some time. And I'll show you the actual, I mean, I will not describe fully. We have taken up a few algorithms to see how they can be implemented using integrated optical devices. A few students have been working on this subject. We have completed a few theses and a few of them have been working. Let me show you our recent work. Okay, next slide, please. So one of our aims in this lab is to make photonic integrated devices which can manipulate quantum gates. One of the ideas that we are exploring is to use the modes of optical wavegates. Many of you know the integrated, if you have come across integrated optics, you have the modes of the optical wavegates like TE modes, TM modes, HE modes, and so on and so forth. So we are exploring to represent quantum information by the modes of the optical wavegates. That's the crux of this paper. You can have a normal Y branch or a photonic crystal Y branch. As was mentioned in the beginning by Dr. Srikanth, you have photonic crystal devices which can form very compact integrated photonic devices. So you can use to implement, you can use these photonic band gap structures for quantum applications. So if you want to implement a full QKD, BB84 protocol is possible using that. One of the ideas that we have here is, as you know, the modes of optical wavegates can be many. Suppose I can design a 4-mode waveguide. See, we need only 2 modes because if you want to represent a qubit, you need only 2 modes. But I can design 4-mode optical waveguide. So what do you do with that? So, I mean, earlier this was not thought about this way. If you have 4 modes in a waveguide, of course they get mixed up, but you can think of a higher dimensional QKD. You can say, like in digital electronics, you have multiple channels. So you can have higher order, higher dimensional QKD. You have 4 states to represent. Instead of only 0 and 1, you can have 4 states to represent. Once again, using the matrices of linear algebra, you can write the basis space of this and so on and so forth. So in the beginning, I said the 2 power n is the order of qubit information growth. So you can, instead of 2 power n, if the dimension is d, if there are 4 modes, 4 power n qubits of information can be represented by higher dimension, 4-dimensional QKD. Similarly, p-dimensional QKD you can think of, and it will be p power n. So higher dimensional QKD is going to play an important role. It's a good, interesting thing. Of course, the basic idea is there in electronics in binary and higher order modulation formats. So this idea is borrowed, and you can think of higher dimensional QKD using these devices, particularly waveguide devices. Okay. Yes. That's what I would like to mention, but a lot of other things that we have. We are trying to, our faculty member, Professor Varun Raghunath, is working on creating single photon sources for quantum communication using all these ring resonators and all that. Let us go to one more. So there are a lot of configurations are there for that also, options. One more, please. Yeah, that's all I would like to mention, and thank you very much for listening. I hope we'll have more interesting lectures in the FDP, and thank you also for involving me in your FDP. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving a wonderful basic information regarding the quantum information technology and basics on quantum qubits. So if any questions are there, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Sir, actually, what will be the advantage of the gates which are proposed on the quantum computing over the photonic crystal-based gate structure or logic designs?
Okay. Let us think about gates. Quantum gates is the idea that we are trying to discuss. When you want to manipulate these qubits, you see, in classical, we manipulate with bits. In quantum, we need to manipulate matrices. And these matrices are representing how they are done. That is a mathematical part. Physically, how do we implement is the question. So in this discussion, in this some of the slides I showed that you can use optical devices. Photonics is the way to implement. Photonics is a physical technology, not mathematics. So we can represent using optical devices like lenses, prisms, beam splitters. Laser, of course, is needed. These are all the photonic devices. So we need single photon source. We need the properties of optical waveguides. We have to study first of all. Waveguide is there already. It's not only a classical device. So these are all the physical devices. Waveguides, beam splitters, interferometers, and also in more recent times, the photonic band gap structures. Photonics band gap structure is a sort of optical device, like a waveguide. As you know, photonic band gap structures have proved already many applications. Like people have created a lot of devices with photonic band gap structures, like sensors, like communication devices, MUX, DMUX, and all people have created using photonic band gap structures or photonic crystals. So you can create new devices using photonic crystals for quantum applications. Sometimes they will not have parallel with classical. Okay, that's a very good technology. Yes, I hope that is your question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, any other questions? If you have, you can please raise your hand or unmute yourself. So I think if there are no questions, I would like to take this privilege to thank my professor, Dr. T. Srinivas, for accepting our invitation and giving the keynote speaker here. So thank you very much, sir, for giving such a wonderful talk on this session. In your busy schedule also, you have provided such a good information to us. Thank you very much, sir. And we'll be having one more session of yours in the next schedule.
I'll talk about more about all these devices, photonic integrated circuits for quantum applications.
Yes, sir. On the 1st of December, we have your session, sir. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So for the participants, we'll have our next session at 11:45. So we'll meet at 11:45 for this session on photonic components for quantum computing by Dr. Gopal Hegde. So we'll meet at 11:45. Thank you.